much concern over some South Africans who've been trying to escape the invasion of Ukraine by Russian forces in the last week or so, with reports of expats also suffering racial profiling while trying to cross into countries such as neighboring Poland. Now, even if they do make it into neighboring countries, they're likely to face much of the same discrimination, and many will be struggling to find a route back home or to a third country. But a group of South Africans who live in Germany are now doing their bit and opening their homes to fellow countrymen who may be stranded. Let's talk more about this with the founder of SA Travelers WhatsApp group, Carmen Hubel, who is joining us from Berlin in Germany. Carmen, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for being on News at Prime. So your WhatsApp group began as a group during the peak of the Omicron COVID-19 variant, and it's now evolved in the last few days. How did that come about?
Yes, so I started the group to talk about the travel restrictions that were imposed on South Africans when Omicron was identified. And we would just swap ideas and talk about the latest regulations and how to get into South Africa or back into Germany, where I am. And once things had settled, I did suggest to the group, well, you know, the group has served its purpose. We can close it down now. And it was resounding no. No one wanted to close the WhatsApp group. And it's become a group for support where we discuss all sorts of legal matters, but also share recipes for boerewors or biltong.
As a South African does. But when did you realize that this group now, especially in the last 8 days, needed to take a much more significant, shall we say, a more serious purpose?
The thing is, you know, South Africans in Europe are a very strong community because we feel quite alone in the EU. It's very difficult to be a South African in Europe. And I had come across a story last week about a student from Pietermaritzburg who was in Ukraine, who all of a sudden probably just woke up one morning and found herself in the middle of a war. And I just thought, wow, I'd never thought that there are South Africans there. And I just thought of my two daughters who are 3 and 5, and if I were South African and had sent my kids overseas to study and they were in the middle of a war, what would I want? And I would want my fellow South Africans overseas to help out.
Talk to me about the number of South Africans possibly who've left Ukraine and maybe the neighboring countries where they'd fled to in the initial phases of the evacuation. Do you know of any who are currently being housed by fellow South Africans in Germany where you are?
It's difficult to put a number on it, and as far as I know, currently, I stand to be corrected, but there currently are none of these South African refugees from the Ukraine that are in Germany, because Germany is quite difficult to get to. It's a little bit further. It costs quite a bit to get to Germany. So most of the South Africans from the Ukraine have made their way to Poland and to Hungary. But I can say that there are the German Deutsche Bahn or German train service. They are offering free train services into Germany for those who are fleeing Ukraine.
And in terms of activity in your circle, I know a lot of people are worried, sick about the situation as a whole, and as you were just saying about fellow South Africans who may be caught up in this fighting. Have you had any people reach out to you, even if they don't need a place to stay, but just need some form of help?
I've currently not had anyone reaching out to me that needs help, but what I have had is a bunch of South Africans, hundreds of South Africans who have reached out to say, I want to help, whether it be accommodation, whether it be paying for accommodation in Poland, you know, for Airbnbs for South Africans, or saying, hey, I have a car, I'm willing to go pick these people up at the airport and take them where they need to be.
And I suppose what's also going to be needed going forward, if there is indeed a surge in the number of people who reach out, would be consular support as well, possibly.
Yes. It's difficult to speak on behalf of the consulate. You know, I wouldn't want to think that they wouldn't help South Africans that need help. So, you know, the consular services in Germany. But obviously, we know that with consulates and with embassies, things can be quite bureaucratic. So the message that I have and that the South Africans here in Germany have is to our fellow South Africans who need help, we are here for you. Our homes are open, and you can come home to us.
And I suspect I may have mispronounced your surname at the beginning of our conversation. Do you mind just helping me out with that?
So it's actually, yeah, my husband is Namibian, but Namibian German, however that works out, and it's Herbal. I probably don't even say it properly, so you can use my maiden name, which is Visser. It's much easier to understand.
Carmen Herbal. Good to speak to you. Carmen is a South African speaking to us from Berlin tonight. They've set up a WhatsApp group. They're trying to help South Africans who may have just left Ukraine and are in Germany in transit or hoping to stay there much longer as that war continues in parts of Ukraine. We've now seen an escalation in the last 24 hours, which is being discussed, in fact, tonight at the United Nations Security Council emergency meeting. Let's take you